The creek wasn't just a ribbon of water winding through the hillside. It was a lifeline, a whisper of history, a pulse of memory that ran deeper than the roots of the ancient pines. As a kid, I'd dart through the tall grass, chasing fireflies under the moon's glow, my bare feet sinking into the cool earth while my grandpa, Amos, sat on a stump, carvying cedar into tiny birds. His old tin flask was always brimming with water from that creek so crisp, so pure it could jolt you awake. He called it the hill's heartbeat. To me, it was home. Our land, tucked in the folds of Pine Hollow, had been ours for generations, its borders scratched into the earth by calloused hands and later sealed in brittle county ledgers. It spanned from the jagged Sparrow Crest to the shadowed Raven's Dip, cradling a wide sweep of the hill. At its heart was Willow Creek, our creek, its waters bubbling up from a mossy cleft. When my folks passed, I took over the old cabin, coaxing the garden back to life and clearing the winding paths. I didn't need much, just the quiet, the breeze, the hum of the wild. I built a life rooted in respect for what came before. So when I got back from a weekend away and saw a chain-link fence slashing across my eastern boundary, my heart sank like a stone in a well. There was a cold, glinting barrier clawing up the slope, its steel post stabbed into my soil. Worse, a sign hung at the creek's head, public resource. Property of Greenvale, HOA. Do not tamper. I stood there, blinking, certain it was a mistake, a cruel joke. But the fence sneered in the dawn light, unyielding. It didn't just choke the creek, it looped past my weather barn, circled half my firewood stack, and even grazed the maple my mom planted the spring I was born. Down the hill, 2 trucks idled, their doors stamped with Greenvale, HOA maintenance crew. I walked over, arms folded, jaw tight. A guy in a bright orange vest leaned out his window. "Morning," he said, casual as if he hadn't just gutted my land. "Just finishing the public access fence. Won't bug you much." I stared at him. "Who said you could build this on my property?" He faltered, muttering something about a board vote last month, claiming the creek was now a shared watershed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I just turned and climbed back up the hill, a fire kindling in my chestnut rage, but something sharper. This wasn't about water. It was about my family's story being erased, as if Amos hadn't carved the creek's first channel with his own hands, as if decades of care could be wiped away with a signature. That night, I dug through the oak chest in the attic. Inside were treasures, a 1908 deed, its edges curling, a faded photo of my dad as a boy, grinning with a cup under the creek, and maps so old the ink had bled. I spread them across the kitchen table, not because I'd forgotten, but because they had, and I wasn't about to let that stand. Next morning, I marched into the Greenvale HOA office, boots still damp from the hill's dew, a folder clutched under my arm. The place was a polished shell-fake with floors, stale coffee, a receptionist named Clara who flashed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I need to talk to whoever approved the fence on parcel 319C, I said, voice steady but hard. She tapped her keyboard. "That'd be Mr. Hargrove, our resource manager. He's out till Thursday." Of course he was. I slid my folder across the counter. "This is my deed from 1908. The creek's mine. Your crew fenced it without permission. Show me the easement that says otherwise." Clara hesitated, then pulled a binder and handed me a packet. Water access plan, Zone West, board approval, 73 vote. It showed my land shaded as a community resource zone. I jabbed at the page. "Where's the legal ground for this?" She flipped to a clause about the HOA's Resource Management Initiative, claiming all water within their new perimeter was shared. I laughed, not out of humor, but because it was absurd. That perimeter went up last month, and now you're saying my land's community because of it? Her smile wavered. "It's flexible. Flexible. My creek, locked behind their gate, branded as theirs." "There's been a mistake," I said, voice low, "and I'll give your board one chance to fix it before I do." I didn't slam the door. I drove to the county clerk's office and pulled every map on file. As I'd thought, my parcel hadn't changed since 1979. The creek was still in my name. The HOA had no claim. So why the audacity? That evening, I walked the fence again and found a clue, a fresh concrete marker near the old sycamore, dated 6 weeks back. They hadn't just fenced my creek, they'd redrawn the boundary, betting I wouldn't notice or know how to fight. But Amos taught me to walk this land like it was sacred, and every step now burned with purpose. This wasn't a mix-up anymore. It was theft. I packed a bag like Amos used token pass, maps, camera, boots laced tight, and set out to prove it. The hill was more than dirt to me. It was a levying memory. I knew every twist of the path, every gnarled root, every spot where the light danced through the leaves. I started at Sparrow Crest, heading for the creek's source. The fence stood out like a scar, its metal glinting against the wild. But the land doesn't lie. Near the northern rise, I brushed aside moss and found it. An iron pin, set in concrete, half buried but unmoved. I snapped photos, logged the coordinates. 50 yards on, another rusted stake, still true. The fence cut between them, off by at least 40 feet. Higher up, past the jagged boulder ridge, I reached the creek's heart, a bubbling spring Amos called the hill's eye. There, behind a rotted log, something gleamed, a brass plaque, dated 1948, etched with water source reserved in perpetuity, Harper Land Deed, Article 4, Section B. I froze. This wasn't just family lore, it was law, carved in metal, untouched by time. I photographed it from every angle. This was proof no board could bury. Back home, I compiled everything: the plaque, the pins, GPS data, county maps, the 1908 deed. But I didn't stop there. I posted a video online, titled "They Fenced My Creek and Claimed My Land, but they forgot who owns the hill." By nightfall, comments poured in. Neighbors shared their own stories, fences creeping onto their lots, walls capped for community use, votes they never heard about. This wasn't just my fight anymore. It was a spark catching fire. I printed a formal trespass notice, thick with EVY Denke, and dropped it at the HOA office. Clara's smile was gone. "This isn't a request," I said. "It's your last warning." A week later, a crimson-sealed envelope arrived. I knew what it was before I opened it. A cease and desist from Greenvale HOA, accusing me of defamation and trespassing on common zones. They demanded I scrub my VY. My grip tightened. They weren't retreating, they were attacking. Not just my land, but my name. So I called Lena Voss, a property lawyer I'd met at a land rights workshop. She was fierce, raised on a farm, and lived for cases like this. "They think we don't read the fine print," she'd once said. "That's their mistake." Lena filed a lawsuit by week's end. Trespass, property damage, boundary violation, resource theft. But what shook the HOA wasn't the suit, it was the headlines. A local reporter, tipped off by my VY, ran a story. HOA fences historic creek, sparks war with hill landowner. It quoted the 1948 plaque, showed the misaligned fence, and cited my deed. A board member, Mr. Cutler, quit 2 days later, no explanation. Whispers spread of shady votes, hidden emergency clauses. My mailbox filled with letters from neighbors, an old couple whose pond was drained, a family whose well was sealed. They'd thought they were alone. They weren't. The HOA lawyered up their new attorney, Preston, all polish and arrogance. But they couldn't erase the plaque or the pins I'd filmed. And then came a bombshell. Lena got an anonymous email with a leaked HOA memo. It wasn't just about fencing the creek, they'd plan to bottle and sell it, a fundraising deal with a private vendor, branding it Greenvale Pure. My creek, their profit. Lena sealed the memo for court, and the case morphed from a land dispute to fraud. April 17th, I walked into Pine County Court, boots polished, Lena at my side, a leather binder in hand. The courtroom was heavy with tension, packed with neighbors who'd stayed silent too long. Preston strutted in, smirking like this was routine. Lena didn't flinch. She laid out our case: the 1908 deed, the 1948 plaque, GPS tag pins, the fence's misalignment. Then she unveiled a 1985 letter from the original Greenvale developers, stating parcel 319C and its creek were exempt from annexation due to historic family rights. The room went still. They didn't just trespass, Lena said. They ignored legal exclusions predating their HOA. Preston fumbled, claiming clerical errors. environmental needs, no prior complaints. The judge cut in, voice dry. If someone fences your yard without asking, you don't need a form to fight it. Outside, reporters swarmed. The story spread: wells locked, trees felled, rights erased. 3 days later, another leak. Internal HOA emails plotting the bottling deal, complete with revenue charts. The judge's eyes narrowed. Your clients claimed this creek for community use while planning to sell it, he said to Preston. Is that right? Preston flushed. The board believed they could steal, the judge snapped. The word hung like a blade. The HOA's chairwoman, Ms. Drayton, took the stand, voice breaking. We didn't know about the deed. We were told the creek was zone public. The bottling was for dues. Lena let her words sink in. The judge ordered the fence torn down, the easement voided, a public apology, an audit of the HOA's last 5 years, and damages to cover my fees. But the real win was the ripple. Online forums exploded with homeowners digging up their deeds, questioning their HOAs. The Greenvale board crumbled, Drayton gone. The treasurer vanished, Preston replaced. Melissa, the new board president, came to me months later. We're rewriting the charter, she said. Will you help? I didn't jump in. I'll read every word, I told her. But it has to honor the land. The creek became a quiet shrine. Neighbors VY cited, Leah VYing stones or flowers on a bench I built. Lena stopped by one fall day, sipping creek water from her flask. I've got 5 new cases because of you, she grinned. You're starting a revolution. I shrugged, just keeping what's mine. A year on, a letter arrived from the old treasurer's son. Dad kept your story in his desk. He knew he was wrong. Thank you for standing firm. I tucked it under a stone by the creek. Then came Walter Hargrove, the man who'd signed the fence order. He was thinner, grayer, holding a faded site plan. Your grandpa, Amos, signed this, he said, pointing to a note. A water deal with my family, not the HOA. I stared at Amos's signature beside Hargrove's kin. A handshake across time, broken by greed. I was wrong, Walter said. Keep this or burn it. You needed to know. I asked, do you believe in anything now? He looked at the pines. People maybe. He left, and I buried the paper by the creek under Amos's initials and mine. The hill didn't change. The creek still flowed, clear and free. But I fought for more than land, for Amos, for truth, for those who'd come after. A drone-shot photo arrived one day. No cinder, showing the creek gleaming like a vein of silver. A note read, what we fight for isn't just ours. It's bigger. Thank you. I framed it beside the deed. My story faded from headlines, but lived in whispers, a warning to HOAs, a beacon to the silenced. The new charter passed with a creek clause, demanding consent for land changes. A law student's blog called me the man who beat the Hill HOA. It spread, and soon strangers wrote cactus gardens raised, fences torn down, voices rising. I didn't fight for glory. I fought because truth echoes through hills I'll never walk, through lives I'll never know. One evening, fixing a gate, I looked to the creek, its waters catching the last light. They tried to take it. They failed, because I didn't just own the hill, I carried it. So what do you think? Should HOAs have the power to claim private land for community good? Is one person's fight enough to topple a system? Or are we all just shouting into the void? Would you risk everything for a piece of your history? Or is it easier to let it go? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this stirred you, and subscribe for more stories that cut to the bone. Let's keep the truth flowing.